Welcome to probably the most controversial part of the summit. COVID has changed all of our lives and definitely our business here on the farm, probably irrevocably. And we had a lot of difficulty navigating it, doing what we do. I am wanting to share a little bit about what I saw from my perspective, doing what I do for a living, helping people feel better and keep their health. I wanted to take some time and share that perspective in this summit because it's probably a lot what has driven my desire to get this information out about a proactive way to live with your health. Over the time of the pandemic, we all saw a lot of things coming out from top down, from our government, from the CDC, from our health departments, a lot of statements about where we should go and when we should go and what we should wear. And it was all done in the name of public health. And a lot of us felt very much disenfranchised because we felt that public health wasn't actually ever being addressed in this. For me, it was very frustrating because I didn't see the need for fear. I was very frustrated to watch people be wrapped up in the fear of the moment. It was that reactionary moment of there's a danger here and now you have to react and follow all of these changes in your life to protect yourself. And my family didn't react that way because we had been protecting ourselves for a very long time. It is what I wrote a post that will be shared here below called the BDIAGO plan. It's BDIAGO, or the best defense is a good offense plan. We didn't worry about how to address the illness or do something to hide from the illness that was amongst the human population in my family. We had already done all of our prep work so that we were fully healthy and ready to meet a challenge. It's a different way to look at the immune system. And I think right now we've got two very different camps going on in our world, really. I'd love to say just our country, but it's our world. We have a camp that is more from a Béchamp, Bechamp. He was the guy at the same time as Pasteur was coming out and talking about his theory on how we were getting sick. Béchamp talks about the terrain. And so a lot of us on one side of this argument are thinking more towards the whole system here needs to be fully healthy. And then what we encounter is not really the threat that it can be. We have performed, if you will, mitigation before ever coming upon the threat. And so the threat is much lessened, much weakened in our bodies because we are stronger organisms. On the side of Pasteur, we have the germ theory, full-on idea that you're walking along and nasty viruses and germs are jumping out of the bushes to get you unawares, and there's nothing you can do and you're helpless to stop it. And for that, you have to have some sort of heroic medicine to come in and save you from that horrendous attack or threat. So as I was going through this, watching people having fear used against them, I wanted so badly to tell everybody that that a virus is just a virus. We can talk and debate all day long about where this particular virus came from and whether we think it was altered or whether we think it came from the natural world. At the end of the day, that doesn't really matter, because the only thing we have control over is how our bodies are ready for the challenge. We are challenged constantly. We're challenged by everything in our environment, and it's up to us to be resilient every day. I raise resilient children with resilient immune systems, and I want that in my spouse and myself as well. So this whole summit really comes out of this. We're in a place right now where we need to stop going about our business, ignoring our bodies, and then expecting something to come along and save us. Because there were many people in the past 3 years who were hit with a virus that was particularly nasty, and they were already standing on the edge of the cliff. Their bodies were weakened because of lies that have been told to them about food and lies that had been told to them about whether or not they were truly healthy. And if you are just maintaining an illness and taking a drug every day to maintain that illness, you aren't truly healthy. We had people that were standing on the edge of a cliff for a very long time, and something particularly nasty came through and pushed them over. And perhaps that didn't need to be, for a lot of reasons. If we would get this information out about how to prepare for a virus. So I thought a lot while it was going on about, could I put out a virus school? It feels like people have lost all of this natural, common sense information about how to protect themselves against a virus and how to prevent severe illness, because it doesn't matter how many herbs you take or how well you eat, you're going to get sick sometimes. That's the dirty little secret. We think that if we're living a natural life, we're supposed to be perfect, and the proof is in the pudding if you're never sick. But your body requires challenges to the immune system to learn and grow. It's a muscle, and it needs to be strengthened. So we have a lot of people in our population that have fires burning in their houses that aren't being dealt with, and that weakens the structure of the body. When something comes through that's really tough to throw off, it can be serious. I think we had some people in our population that looked at COVID as a joke. It didn't exist. I think those people were very few and far between. The vast majority of those of us who did not react in fear were doing so not because we didn't think it wasn't a serious illness for some people. We were doing it because it wasn't serious for those of us who had been taking care of our body in anticipation of threats. So check out the Bediago plan that I wrote below. It's not an end-all be-all. I can't devise a plan for you and your family, and I don't believe that anybody can devise a solid plan for everybody to shore up the weaknesses, to ensure that you're getting all the nutrition that you need. But there are some basics, making sure that we're getting sun exposure, making sure that we're getting clean water, clean air. I talk a lot about cod liver oil because that is a vitamin A source, or organ meats. But it's a vitamin A source that allows us to absorb a lot of our other water-soluble vitamins and minerals. We need to be laying down solid nutrition that we just aren't doing in our population. So the Bediago plan, talking about what we were doing in my family, we were eating fish 2 to 3 times a week. We were supplementing with vitamin D. We were ensuring that we were getting enough zinc. I favor food. So when you see something written from me, I'm looking at ways that I can get those nutrients out of food in large part as opposed to supplementation. A lot of people were supplementing with vitamin C and zinc and vitamin D because we were seeing over and over again that people were low in those things. I will definitely say that the symptom of lack of taste and smell that happened as people were ill and that lingered for a lot of people is a symptom of a deficiency in zinc. So those people who lost their taste and sense of smell were using up a vast majority of the stores of the zinc that they had in their body, or they didn't have stores, and they needed to be boosting that throughout their illness. And as they continued to not be able to taste and smell, one of the easiest things to get that back is to boost your zinc back up. We see that as a common symptom. We lose taste and smell pretty much in a lot of other upper respiratory issues because we actually block our ability to do that with inflammation and congestion. But this was particularly a nasty version of this. So I invested a lot in trying to tell people what to do to prepare their bodies before they were ill, what they could do to start to put that nutrition in. And I suppose I may have gotten in trouble for that post, but the post that I really got into trouble and where the controversy comes in is the managing coronaviruses at home post that I'm gonna walk through here. It was the start of a lot of pain in our business and what has changed a lot about what we do. So throughout the time of the pandemic and the lockdowns, there were a lot of people who weren't being seen by doctors. They weren't being seen if they had any kind of symptom of an upper respiratory issue or anything that was able to be categorized as possible COVID. So we had a lot of really sick people at home. We had, so we were having things like upper respiratory infections going untreated that were getting worse and worse. We had advice being handed out by our medical bureaucracy, I guess you can say, that we needed to close somebody who was sick up in a room and leave them by themselves and slip food under the door. And that was one of the most dangerous things that I saw happening. There were a lot of family members that wound up calling me, and I'm sure many other me's across the country, who are not medical professionals, who probably didn't, in a lot of cases, didn't want to be in the position of being on call like that, but there was no one else to reach out to. So I was scrambling to try and help people where I didn't want to, but there was no one else, and I felt a responsibility to help. So some of the things that I was seeing when people were calling me was frantic family who had put a family member in a room and not monitored them and not kept them hydrated. We have lost the ability to take care of sick people. People just don't know how to take care of themselves or how to take care of somebody else anymore. The post that I share below is really just a bunch of common sense, old information. It's nothing I've invented. It's really just my observation of any virus, how we can take care of any virus. There are a few things that I believe we saw a little bit different with COVID, And as it's going to keep coming back around and keep mutating, that's just the nature of a virus. There are some things to keep in mind. One of them is that in my observation, it appeared to me that we really have a COVID tends to bring on stickiness. So really sticky, stubborn mucus. Even when somebody was really well hydrated, a mucus that was difficult to get up and out of the lungs. And we see that in some of the other things that the side effects that we're seeing now throughout our population of sticky blood. There is an aspect of all of this that is just, I think we need to keep in mind, this stickiness. And that's when we get sticky mucus, usually a virus will have mucus, a respiratory virus will have mucus, because that's how the body defends itself. Mucus isn't bad in and of itself, but as it's produced, we need to be getting it out. The body produces mucus to encapsulate the bacteria that is being brought in, and to shed waste, and it gloms all around it, and then we're irritated to cough it up and get it out. The lungs, after all, are a filter for us, and so the body creates that mucus to protect us. In the case of what I saw, where people would get the simple coronavirus and be dealing with those typical viral symptoms, miserable, achy, coughy, mucus, those are all just standard in that family of viruses. But where I was seeing this go wrong was the laying in bed and not hydrating and not moving and not concerning people, not being concerned with getting that mucus up and out. So would we cover up the inside of the lung with a thin veneer of sticky mucus, we reduce our oxygen level. And this is what everybody was measuring with their pulse ox, is that their oxygen exchange was reduced because so much of their lungs were covered up. It's kind of like if you put a bag over your head, you're not getting oxygen exchange, and that was happening inside the lungs. So there are a lot of things that can be done to keep fluid moving out of the lungs, but we absolutely do not want to put somebody in a room, lay them on their back, turn on the TV, and walk out and leave them. That unfortunately led to the loss of a lot of people, and I really believe that that was needless. Some of those people may have been too weakened, that they weren't going to recover from this virus, but we lost too many people due to negligence. Negligence in our medical field, negligence at home, from people just not knowing. So it's really important that you understand with congestion that the longer mucus stays in the lungs, the longer it can become a big petri dish. It is a medium for attracting and growing bacteria. And the more we breathe in from our environment, and the less we're able to shed out, it builds and builds and builds. And a virus is not something that anybody can treat. We've known that forever. You don't cure or end a virus. You have the resilience in your body before you get a virus to be able to make it minimal. You know how to care for the body during the virus so that it doesn't worsen, and you also prevent secondary infections. And then you know how to take care of the body to recover. We've lost all of that. If you lay on your back, your lungs fill with fluid, and you cannot fight gravity as easily to get that out. Laying on your back is often a recipe for pneumonia. You have to get up and move around no matter how tired you are, no matter how exhausted you are. I had people calling me from the bathroom. I'm so sick. I took 15 minutes to get in here and I had to take a break before I went back. This is so terrible. That's a virus. That's normal. It's normal to feel lousy. It's normal to be short of breath. It's normal to not have any energy. But if you don't get up and push through that, your lungs are not getting squeezed. Your muscular movement of walking and reaching and leaning squeezes your lungs. It irritates your lungs so that they feel that lining of ick that's on there and they cough it up. Coughing is a good thing. We don't want to stop coughing when it is productive. Productive is I can hear the rattle when somebody coughs and they're getting something up. A productive cough is typically not something that we need to be super concerned with. You need to be concerned with a cough that is barking and there's no mucus coming up. A dry cough with a heavy feeling in a chest or pain in the chest is much more dangerous. You have to do something to get that up. So that's where I teach things like go into your bathroom, shut the door, turn the shower on, get it steamy, take a book in there, lay on the floor, lay on your side or lay on your back or your front, move around. Spend time in there breathing in that air to get something up and moving. You can steam, which is taking a towel over you, over a bowl that is steamy, and breathe that in. I have on my website a mustard plaster recipe and video on how to do mustard plasters. They're ancient. It's mustard powder cut with a little bit of flour, and you put it on a cloth and wet it and put it between the shoulder blades, and that is a deep warming situation that irritates the lungs and gets congestion up. These old ways of moving fluid out of our lungs are still valid today. They're non-toxic. They don't cost us anything to do, or very, very little. It does not contraindicate with any medication or any recommendation from your doctor, but it does contraindicate with the recommendation from the CDC to lay in bed by yourself. The next thing about mucus is that it needs to be watered down. If you think about glue, if we take glue out of the bottle and sit it in a cup, it's very, very thick. If I add water, if I continue to add water to that glue, it evens it out. It disperses that glue throughout the water, and the water still has the glue there, but it's thinner and it's lighter and less sticky. That's what hydrating your body does. If you do not hydrate your body, your mucus stays hard and sticky and difficult to get out. The more liquid you put in, the more that mucus thins out, gets irritating, and coughs it up. If you are moving, you aren't drowning. If you're moving and you're sitting up, I recommended to a lot of people that they sleep semi-inclined, because laying down, you can really, all of that stuff spreads over the surface of your lungs and you can really start to struggle to feel like you can breathe. Sitting up, being inclined, helps the action of pulling oxygen down into the lungs and can really help somebody out of that panic place. The next thing is looking at how once somebody starts to get the mucus moving, you want to spit it into a sink or a tissue. You need to see it. You need to understand what you're coughing up. A clear mucus, fabulous. If you are coughing and feel miserable and have no energy and can't really do much, but you're producing clear or even white mucus, you're good. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep moving forward. If you start to see yellow or green in that mucus, you need to be treating that as if you have an infection. If you have options at home that you like for that, Golden Seal is a good one. I was recommending ginger tea all the way through. If you have something that fights infection at home, you need to be doing that. If you prefer an antibiotic or talking to a doctor about an infection, you need to be doing that. Yellow or green mucus says that you are developing infection in the lungs, and it's not something to just wait around and see if it gets better. You need to take action on that. If it goes closer to brown and you're starting a little bit of blood streaks and coughing, unfortunately became more common with COVID because that stickiness, it was so hard to throw up. People were coughing so hard, it made them feel like they were going to throw up. It began to tear some of that sensitive tissue inside the lungs, and so we would see a little bit of blood. Small amounts of blood in coughing up, little streaks here and there, not alarming. Coughing up blood, very alarming. And that's absolutely when the medical professionals needed to be called in. There are plants that are called expectorants. You can Google that. I have a lot of them inside the membership in my database for searching. Expectorants are a class of herbs that help to get the mucus up and out. And so mullein is a great one, and eucalyptus gets used, and lobelia is a really nice one in very small measure. We have a lot of expectorants available to us, so you can use natural options for this. But just so as long as whatever you choose, whether it's an over-the-counter or a prescription, you must make sure that the mucus is moving and that you are moving. That was one thing that I was seeing problems with. Fever. Fever gets a bad rap, so people get really panicked about fever. There was fever associated with a lot of people dealing with COVID, and I expect to see it back around. We don't need to stop a fever unless it gets too high or prolonged. If you cripple a fever, you stop the body's defense against the virus. The body is attempting to burn out the virus. It cannot survive in that heat. And so if you interrupt the body's defense mechanism, then you're going to have to do something heroic on the outside because you've crippled your own defense. But never, ever leave somebody unattended with a fever. Don't put them behind a closed door and not watch them. Somebody with a fever, low grade or high, must be taking in fluids, must be producing fluids, so they must be getting up and urinating. They must be coherent. You have to watch them for signs of danger. You want to make sure that they're communicating. You want to make sure that they are drinking non-caffeinated, non-sugary drinks so that they're getting plenty of hydration. Whether they're drinking water, tea, or whether you're giving them broth or soups, that's all proper hydration. And if you keep it going, then you're less likely to get into danger. A lot of time a fever spikes because of dehydration, because you have somebody who has stopped taking in liquids and the fever will shoot. Keep the fluid coming. It will protect the body. It will give the body what it needs to manage that heat and burn out the virus. If it becomes scary or you have somebody who has reasons that they can't even handle a low-grade fever, have your fever medication on hand. If you have to stop a fever, stop it, or seek help. Breathlessness was a really common one. That's what everybody had, the pulse oxes at home, those little monitors that went on everybody's finger and caused lots of anxiety. Breathlessness is common. Breathlessness seemed to be even worse with COVID, at least as we were seeing it last year. And again, we're going to be seeing more variation. As this goes through the population, it gets less and less and less. That's how a virus works. So this next round of COVID, if it acts like a natural virus, will be much more mild. It may be more catching, but less mild. And that's what we've seen. And we hope that that trend continues. We would expect that trend to continue. But knowing when it can be worse and what to do is better. So I recommend chlorophyll. And I love a brand called Chloroxygen. It's not necessary to use a brand. It's just the one that I like. Chlorophyll helps. It's something that I would give to someone who was who lived in Ohio, who was going to go hiking in Denver, Colorado. It addresses the altitude sickness where somebody who changes altitude quickly doesn't have the ability to oxygenate their blood very well. Chlorophyll can help with that. So I would use chlorophyll, liquid chlorophyll, and it comes in drops and you can just put it in your water. I would use that for somebody who was getting sick, during sickness, and after sickness to keep them moving in the right direction and recovering, and make sure they're getting the most of every last scrap of oxygen that they're getting into their body. Headaches were common. That was actually one of the things that people talked about being the big indication that they thought they had COVID, was a just debilitating, painful headache that lasted like a day or two solid and nothing could touch it. We used our pain tincture here. We used our headache tincture. I know in our house we used both of those. The pain tincture was really good for people, and that has wild lettuce and, well, that's the main thing. St. John's wort. I think I have skullcap in that one. I'm actually blanking on that formula. But wild lettuce is the critical part of that to tell you about. And that's something that you can harvest out in the weedy spots of your yard. It's something that's a good thing for you to learn about and keep on hand. It is a very powerful pain reliever with no... it doesn't have any addiction. It doesn't cause any damage to the body or digestive upset. It doesn't knock you out. So although some people wanted to be knocked out because the headache was really bad, but we were able to use our pain tincture with that wild lettuce pretty successfully. Some people had digestion and nausea. It's just like a virus that it hits different people differently. So some people had nausea and digestive upset, and some people had the headache and the upper respiratory, and some people had both of them. And I think that we will continue to see weird variation like that as we keep going. The digestion and nausea, again, I highly recommend ginger tea. Learn how to make a ginger tea. I've got the recipe attached in the blog posting that's going to be below this talk. Learn how to make real ginger tea, and always have ginger on your counter, fresh ginger. Ginger was especially important in this illness because it is also a blood thinner, and it has the ability to keep your platelets from sticking together inappropriately. So COVID was helping the blood not be sticky, and it's also helping, it's an antiviral and an anti-inflammatory, sorry, I think I said COVID. Ginger is anti-inflammatory, prevents sticky blood, and it's also antiviral, helping the virus, helping you fight the replication of the virus and keep that from just blowing up inside your system. It's a boost. Anything that you put in your body from a plant standpoint, it's not going in there and curing you. It's going in there and providing the assist. It's the alley-oop. You're doing the shot to the basket, and the herb, the supplement, whatever you're putting in is just tipping it so that it goes just right for you. The work, the real work, if I can just, I probably am going to emphasize this a million times, the real work happens before you're ever sick. If you wait until you're sick to decide, oh my goodness, this is really bad and I've got to protect myself, now you're in a let's triage this and hopefully it doesn't get super bad. Now I've got to save myself situation. If you put in all the work ahead of time, you are managing an illness that is usually milder. This is all usually and should be. We can't predict, but for the most part, you do the work ahead of time. It's going to be less for you. If you maintain your body, illnesses do not attack you in the same way. So some of the best general practices, I mentioned steams. If you sit in a closed bathroom a few times a day, run the steam. You should try and steam either with a bowl or in a bathroom 20 to 30 minutes at a time. If you have small children, this is a time to take them in with blocks or a game or something that they like to do and sit on the floor and play with them. If you have a baby, nurse them. Sit in that room and enjoy the sauna and breathe in that steam. If you're an essential oils person, you can put a drop or two in the bottom of your shower so that that is up in the air, or a diffuser, but very mild in a closed space like that. And being very aware that if you're nursing a baby and using essential oils, know which ones are right for that. Hydrate. Know how to make bone broth, or have a friend that will make you bone broth if you're sick. Have it in your freezer ahead of time. Again, be proactive. You are likely to get sick. You are likely to have somebody in your family that will get sick. So have ginger tea. We have it available for our customers here. Have bone broth available. Know that you need those things in your freezer or the supplies to make just in case, so you're not scrambling and you can get right on it. Hydrate with tea, water, non-sugary, non-caffeinated drinks, soups, anything that has liquid. Get it in that person and keep it coming. If they don't feel like it, tell them they have to. They have to try a little bit. You cannot allow somebody to be grumpy and lay there and refuse to take anything in. If you allow somebody to do that, who you're taking care of at home, you will likely wind up having to take care of the hospital bill and managing them in the hospital instead of at home. It's much better to be pushy with them and insist that they have liquids, insist that they try a little bit of soup, insist that they sit up and have some sips. Argue with them, fight with them, make them move around, make them run away from you. That's movement for their chest. But don't let somebody push you away. If you have a small child or a really difficult spouse, you can make popsicles. Popsicles are a great win when somebody's sick, their throat hurts, they have a fever, they're cranky, and popsicles are treats for kids. So don't lose the creativity, but do be pushy. It is important. This is life-saving information to hydrate them. And if you don't, they're going to get worse. Rest. The age-old thing of, well, I'll just keep going. I I'm the mom and I have to cook dinner. And if I don't cook dinner, then people will go hungry. They need to go hungry. If you're sick, your body needs all of its resources that it can have to fight the illness. You only have so many resources in your body. If you divert too many resources towards digesting heavy meals, not the time. Or not digesting, but taking care of everybody else. If you divert all the resources away from you and you have this much resources for your body to use to heal, to fight the virus, to keep it from replicating, it will overwhelm your resources. So put all the resources that you have available together and use them to fight. So you rest, you watch the movies, you do lay in bed, you move position often, you sit up inclined, you get up to the bathroom, you get up and make yourself some tea every once in a while. It is a good idea to go outside or open a window and get some fresh air from time to time. Those are all good practices while you're resting. Some of the things that we heard a lot, I guess the last thing that we heard a lot of during COVID, we heard a lot of natural therapies. We heard about hydroxychloroquine. We heard about ivermectin. We heard about pine needles. Speaking as somebody who deals in plants, I can tell you that the pine needle wasn't exactly what it was cracked up to be, and I wrote a piece about that and the analysis of what all is in there. And it wasn't necessarily fighting the spike protein, I don't believe, but it does have shikimic acid in it, and also a really nice amount of vitamin C. So pine needles are a valuable tool to use. Not exactly what it was being reported as, but definitely something that shikimic acid is something that we see in Tamiflu. It was originally isolated from star anise, and you can still use star anise. You can use a tea of star anise, or I don't know if they got tinctures or not. I've always used it in a tea. You can mix it in a honey. You can put it in pudding and give it to somebody. But star anise is another one that's got shikimic acid, and there are others. Vitamin C is an absolute in improving that while somebody is sick, before, during, after. But pine needle tea has its value. Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, ideal in plants. I saw a lot of people have good results from those two, and I feel like those are therapies to look into on your own and see if they are valid for you. We tend to use things that are really simple in food and plants in our family, and I think if there are so many resources out there that you can look deeper into the controversy over that. If you do feel that something antiparasitic is helpful, much like ivermectin, there are a lot of things that you can use in the plant world that can help from that standpoint. But I do believe we saw a need for antibacterial, antiviral, using your fire cider, using your ginger tea. Elderberry is definitely a helpful. But don't forget the common sense things that our grandparents passed down. Using baths, using water as a therapy, using steam and mustard plasters, and moving and rest and hydration. Grandma's chicken noodle soup was way more medicine than a lot of things that you're told today. If I could give you something to take away from the past 3 years about COVID, it is that if you weren't prepared when this all hit, if you were thrown into fear ever in the past 3 years, if you hadn't been doing the work beforehand and you were caught off guard, and maybe you caught up, maybe you supplemented, maybe you did the work once it all got here. Go back now and do the work. All of this is coming back through again. It's not cold and flu season. It's reduced body resilience season. We're headed into Halloween. People are going to eat a lot of candy. And then we go into Thanksgiving and Christmas. And every year people reduce their resilience through factory-made food and preservatives and dyes and toxins that are in these foods, and they get sick. They become a terrain, back to Béchamp, they become a terrain that is easily colonized. All of these organisms are around us. We have never eradicated any organism. We have all of them with us. We have coronavirus. We have billions of viruses with us, on us, in the air. If you're a germphobe, I'm sorry to be saying such frightening things, but they're all around us all the time. We can't be terrified of everything that's drifting through the air and is on our skin. It is not a healthy place to be. You cannot be made terrified of everything. The opposite side of that is to stand up in your strength. Look for the weaknesses in your body. Shore them up. Look for the weaknesses in your family's body. Shore them up. Go through this summit and find all the places that there are weaknesses in your home and begin to fill in the gaps. Do it now, because there is more coming. There always will be more coming, and there will be more now that this has been so successful to scare everyone. It's going to be a new toy of people who enjoy fear propaganda. Don't get caught up in that, because fear and worry and anxiety over something that might be coming for you is also really bad for your health. It lowers your immune system. So step away from it, get some tasks, start moving forward. The answer to feeling stuck and scared is to get in motion. Start putting one foot in front of the other, taking one small step every day to shore up the holes, fill in the gaps, make everybody in your small community and yourself stronger. Learn the basic skills that you need to take care of yourself when you're sick, so that you are easily able to make the illness lessen, less pain, less dangerous, less serious, so that you come through on the other side, you heal up, you reapply nutrition, and you go on your merry way in a full and vibrant life. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm here at Soda Farm. Thanks for listening.